All right. Well, there was a lot of silk covering the wrestling industry this weekend.
How do you want to cover this? I mean, everybody's
silk.
waiting. Everybody's waiting for us to talk about the media scrum. But here's the thing. At one point, everybody was saying going into this weekend, well, the WWE's got momentum. They do the Clash at the Castle in front of 65,000 people or however many. And who knows what we can trust. In Cardiff, the first UK stadium show in 30 years. And they thought, wow, this will be a big deal. And by the next day, that is an afterthought, not because of why Tony Khan wanted that to be an afterthought, because his show was so much blow away better, but because his media scrum was the most entertaining thing that company has ever done, where somebody actually finally came out and grabbed the bull by the tail and faced the situation. And so should we do the scrum first, even though it came second, or how do you want to handle it? It's your show, Brian.
Well, this is the topic that everyone's talking about. So why don't we do this? Why don't we do the CM Punk portion of the scrum first, and then we'll do the pay-per-view, then we'll do the rest of the scrum. You don't even know what else was going on during the scrum. There was all sorts of...
I scrammed after Punk's scrum. It was fucking 1 whatever the fuck in the morning, and I knew nothing was going to top that. So I departed at that point. We've had very little sleep. I may be a little slappy today, but just the sheer ridiculosity of this whole situation is what's keeping me motivated today. So go ahead.
And this is an amazing situation that developed here after the pay-per-view. CM Punk with Tony Khan, the owner of AEW, his boss in AEW, sitting next to him.
Once again, the new reigning and defending AEW World Heavyweight Champion of the World, CM Punk.
Is it a unified champion or is it just undisputed now? What is it?
Well, it's just the real belt that he had all along before they decided to put something on Moxley so he could stink the joint out on the indies.
And one thing notable here before we play into this audio is we know there have been plenty of wrestlers, more than people realize, who have had issues at various times with that entire camp. The Young Bucks, Kenny Omega, let's put Adam Page right there at the top, even though he's kind of like second tier, he's their guy. CM Punk, I think, is the first one to ever publicly verbalize any of it. We hear stuff.
We've heard a variety of these types of comments, accusations, however you want to put it, for some time from different people. But here's the thing. I see a lot of people on Twitter today and wherever on it go, how dare Punk do something like this? Well, I believe the instigating, motivating factor in all of this was when old Hangnail Page did the exact same thing, only not as good. And in more of, what do the kids call it, a passive-aggressive way, which is more of a way of what the Cucamonga kids and all of their little buckaroos do things. They like to just run their dick lickers behind people's back and in quiet instead of doing it out in front of them or in public. But if we're talking about unprofessional behavior and or telling the truth, imagine that, on television, then Page crossed that rainbow bridge first, a few months ago with this promo. And remember, at the time we heard it and we talked about the show the next day on our show, we said, what in the world? Did he just forget everything he was supposed to say because none of this made any sense? Or was he...
That's what you thought, yeah.
Well, yeah, I said, or was he trying to do a shoot interview of some kind, turn heel, or just because he sounded like a whiny little bitch? What was going on there? We didn't know, and then we find out that he was trying. Problem is, he's not articulate enough to be able to do this and still make it legible to the general viewing public. He was trying to do a shoot interview as a shoot on Punk, in front of Punk, in the middle of the ring on live TV, before their big pay-per-view match. So I think that if you're going to do something like that, then at a media scrum where everybody's talking to the media and Tony's so open about everything, and that's where all the opponents come out and hug and kiss on each other and say how much they loved being able to express their art with each other that night, that Punk ought to come out and tell the truth about what happened. How is that unprofessional? They did it to him when he wasn't ready for it on a television show that was not supposed to be for the media. It was supposed to be for public consumption. Well, now here we're talking to the press. So here's what's going on. How is that in any way? What is, as I think he asked one of the journalists in the room, what did I do to get this guy to go into business for himself on me without any warning on live national television? So I don't see how they're blaming Punk for coming out and telling the truth. It's what we've been saying. It's what a lot of other people have been saying. There's two camps. There's the people that are serious about the wrestling profession as a profession and a business. And there's these jackoffs that got their heads so far up their own asses and love the smell of their own farts so much that they still think that their temporary mass amnesia on a certain segment of the wrestling fan population is actually still going, and that they're still the stars of this thing, and that they can act any way they want, and they can talk to people any way they want, and they can treat them any way they want. And if they're in the little clique, they even stole the clique. If they're in the little clique, they're good. They don't have to have talent or ever have been heard of or go anywhere or do anything. They just got to be friends from school. And then there's a group led by, if you want to be honest, Punk is the guy who has drawn them their million people ratings on television. Punk's the guy who's been on top in their $1 million gates. Punk's the guy that's been on top in their multi-million-dollar pay-per-views. And as a matter of fact, I would hesitate to say what, by every metric that you can say, Punk has been the one to generate the business. So.
And remember, this reminded me. Remember some of the spin we were seeing a few months back when it was Punk versus MJF. One of the most coherent and well thought out storylines they've done on TV. We were told that wasn't the draw for the pay-per-view. The spin was, it was Adam Page versus Adam Cole. There has been a version of AEW that's based in reality, and then there's another version coming out of the, as Jim Cornette would say it, the chicken lips of various people and their various friends that has been bullshit. And CM Punk, I said before, he's the first guy to verbalize these things. He's the first guy that can. There are guys afraid of their jobs. EVP, they're bullshit EVPs. I mean, they're EVPs, the way I can make Swami an EVP right now of Arcadian Vanguard. They're not fucking EVPs. But they're playing that role right now. And I think it's going to be a harsh reality that you can call yourself an EVP, but if you can only play with your friends and you're upsetting the biggest star the company has ever had, you're in a lot of trouble. So this is going to be interesting to see how it plays out. But before you and I go on any further and bore everyone, let's get some audio. Jim, this is the very beginning. Now, AEW's audio feed was terrible. It sounded like everyone was a robot. But also, it kind of began abruptly. We didn't get to hear what got CM Punk going. We have some audio here. Let's give credit to the source, Denise Salcedo on YouTube. Here is CM Punk from the very beginning of the press scrum. We'll stop it at various points to discuss your thoughts on this.
Just say your name and your...
Cool. Hi, Nick Housen with Wrestling Inc.
I'll start, Nick. Show of hands. Who here fancies themselves as a journalist? You're a journalist, Nick?
All right. I try my best.
Okay. No, real quick.
Go ahead.
You still do improv?
No, not a little bit.
No?
No.
When you did improv, who'd you do improv with?
I did it with Scott Colton.
Okay, so you fancy yourself a journalist. Would you say you're friends with Scott Colton?
No, I haven't talked to Scott in some time.
So you're not friends with him?
No, Scott and I do not see eye to eye.
Oh, wow. Well, that makes two of us. My point is, if you fancy yourself a journalist, even if it's for the silly world of professional wrestling, and you have journalistic integrity, people who report things, mostly that are bullshit and slanderous lies against myself. If you are friends with somebody, you blew my spot. If you're not friends with them, I apologize.
It's okay.
But you should probably disclose who you're friends with.
I'm not friends with you.
I haven't
or
had
Scott.
anything to do with Scott Colton in almost a decade. Probably wanted nothing to do with him even longer than that. It's fucking unfortunate that I have to come up here and speak on this when I'm on my time and this is a fucking business.
Let me stop it there for a second, because there's already a lot that's happened.
And by the way, we didn't paint the visual picture for those of you just listening to the audio, but Punk is sitting, he's still in his tights. He's bleeding. He's wiped it off, but he's bleeding from his match. He's not showered yet, but he's sitting there and he's eating muffins. The muffins from his favorite muffin place there in Chicago, and I'm sure he'll plug the name of it. And it's just, and he's licking his fingers and answering these questions and just eviscerating people, all the while sitting there and eating bits of muffin and licking his fingers. It's fucking classic.
Well, he also has some sort of beverage here. I don't know if it's seltzer or what, but the other thing, you want to set the visual, Tony Khan is sitting right next to him.
Yes.
And
18 inches.
It's worth watching the video. Just, again, you feel bad for Tony in a sense. But it's a real awkward situation because Punk is very free in the moment. You could tell he's just speaking his mind freely. And Tony doesn't know where it's going to go and when it's going to end. Well, I guess with that said,
yes,
let's get more audio
let's go
here.
Back to it.
Why I'm a grown-ass adult man and I decide not to be friends with somebody is nobody else's fucking business. But my friends, if I fall backwards, will catch me. Scott Colton, I felt, never would have. My problem was I wanted to bring a guy with me to the top that did not want to see me at the top. Okay? You call it jealousy, you call it envy, whatever the fuck it is. My relationship with Scott Colton ended long before I paid all of his bills. I have every receipt. I have every invoice. I have every email. I have the email where he says, and I quote, "I agree to go our separate ways. I will get my own lawyer and you do not have to pay anymore." That's an email that I have. The only reason the public did not see is because when I finally had to countersue him through discovery, we discovered he shared a bank account with his mother. That's a fact.
Let me stop it. I don't know if that's the L train or if Subway is going by. I don't know what that is, but let's go back to this.
And as soon as we discovered that fact and we subpoenaed old Marcia, he sent the email, "Oh, can we please drop all this?" Now, it's 2022. I haven't been friends with this guy since at least 2014, late 2013. And the fact that I have to sit up here because we have irresponsible people who call themselves EVPs and couldn't fucking manage a target, and they spread lies and bullshit and put into a media that I got somebody fired when I have fuck all to do with him, want nothing to do with him, do not care where he works, where he doesn't work, where he eats, where he sleeps. And the fact that I have to get up here and do this in 2022 is fucking embarrassing. And if y'all are at fault, fuck you. If you're not, I apologize. But what did I ever do in this world to deserve an empty-headed fucking dumb fuck like Hangman Adam Page to go out on national television and fucking go into business for himself? For what? What did I do, Dave? What did I ever do?
You tell me.
Didn't do a goddamn thing.
Good comeback,
name,
Meltzer.
Dom D'Angelo.
Let me stop this for a second because he's about to go to another question here. Because again, there's a lot that he covered there.
And here's the thing. We now know what happened, that Page, it's already come out. Page, when he went mad, insane in that interview and tried to verbally go toe-to-toe with the fucking expert, he was in some way or another in their, as we said, whether it's passive-aggressive or just their mealy-mouthed way trying to take up for their friend Colt Cabana, that they have been telling everybody far and wide that Punk's the reason why, that Colt Cabana, the guy who stood as a background fucking mannequin in an underneath heel group that became baby faces through no efforts of his either way for 2 fucking years, suddenly is switched over to another non-existent company, Ring of Honor, even though he's getting paid the same amount of money. Tony just shifted him over to the side, probably because Tony Khan was even smart enough to realize, well, now that I got this guy coming in to draw money and this other guy, they hate each other, I'll just get him out of the way.
He's lucky he was renewed at all or whatever's going on, because before Punk got there, when Punk had zero to do with AEW, it's not like Cabana was tearing up the world. He was barely being used.
That's what I'm saying. They could have fucking blown up a goddamn one of Kenny Olivier's ex-opponents. Could have blown her up and stood her back there, and it'd been the same fucking deal. It's another one of Tony's early acquisitions that he had buyer's remorse on and never made any kind of difference. But the point is,
he was another of the friends. That's why.
He was one of the friends. And because he was one of the friends in All Friends Wrestling got their panties in a bunch and decided to go do their thing where they whisper and they fucking, and they run over the corner. He did this and he did that and he did the other thing. And finally, old Hangnail was stupid enough to bring it out on television. And now he's opened himself up to Punk. You can tell there's some things been building up. I'm not talking about Punk being mad at Colt Cabana for 10 years. By God, he knew him for 20 years. That's enough to be mad at him for 40 years. But I'm talking about this has obviously been building since that happened a couple months ago, and that wasn't the first of it. And he probably hasn't got a suitable explanation or apology from either of the Cucamonga kids or anybody else in their little treehouse that has been spreading all this shit. And so he thought, well, okay, I'll just mention this. What are they going to do about it? I know a lot of people that don't like Punk because, oh, well, he got whipped in the UFC. Yeah, well, old Matt and Nick fucking Hardley, I don't know if they are tall enough to buy a ticket to see the UFC. So who are you going to take there? What about Twinkle Toes? They say he trained a little bit. He's got a bunch of injuries, too. I bet if he tried that V-trigger, Punk would fucking take that leg and fucking bend it south and fucking shove it up his ass. So what are they going to do about it? They want to fucking run their fucking mouths. Well, somebody that now has the cachet in the industry and the platform to fucking say what he thinks about them is willing to do it. So, as Bob Eaton used to say, fuck around, see what happens. There's more audio, and I can't wait to hear it.
Yeah, there is, and I just want to say one thing. This is what they did to you. It just so happens that you have this forum, and your voice didn't go away, and you could fight back. Most people couldn't do that. But they lied. They made up stories. Yeah, there's real shit where they had problems with some of your criticisms of their work. That's one thing. But they made up agendas and stories and tried to demonize you. The Bucks, Cabana way back, Omega, all of these fucking guys. Here's Punk, and I'm not saying Punk agrees with everything you say, but Punk obviously sees wrestling a very different way than they do. He's a threat to them because he's a bigger star than them. He doesn't need an EVP like Jericho. Jericho's not an EVP. He doesn't need it. He realized Punk doesn't need it. He's higher than that. So now what are they going to do? Now they start their whisper campaign, and they start spreading rumors because it's Punk's fault that a guy who's never been used on TV is not being used anymore. They started all this kind of stuff. It's just Punk's going public. They're still over in the corner whispering and looking for friendly wrestling journalists and air quotes that they could talk to.
And look, Punk's been there for a year before he finally decided, I've had enough of these smarmy little fucking douchebags, because they specialize in douchebaggery. So it's not like you get ticked off at them, boom, 100% right in the same day. It's like the douchebaggery builds up. But I knew from the start I didn't want to be in the fucking building with any of them. And now, Punk's had enough. But anyway, let's go back to the deal.
Fuck the Pittsburgh Pirates. What are you doing?
I'm from Pittsburgh. I made it really clear in Forbes, and I just want to make it clear again. Nick,
it's not his position to make it very fucking clear. There's people who call themselves EVPs that should have fucking known better. This shit was none of their business. I understand sticking up for your fucking friends. I fucking get it. I stuck up for that guy more than anybody. Okay? I paid his bills until I didn't, and it was my decision not to.
Yeah, but I shouldn't have no commented when Nick first said it. It's my fault, and if I hadn't, it's my fault. It's my fault.
I appreciate that.
I should have just taken it head on because you never said
But I'm trying
anything.
to run a fucking business, and when somebody who hasn't done a damn thing in this business jeopardizes the first $1 million house that this company has ever drawn off of my back and goes on national television and does that, it's a disgrace to this industry, it's a disgrace to this company. Now, we're far beyond apologies, right? I gave him a fucking chance. It did not get handled, and you saw what I had to do, which is very regrettable, lowering myself to his fucking level. But that's where we're at right now. And I will still walk up and down this hallway and say, if you have a fucking problem with me, take it up with me. Let's fucking go. What's your question, Nick?
And here's another thing, and it was an awkward position with because that's where Punk had to win the belt from Page, right? But here's the thing: you look back at the old days, since Punk has somewhat of an old school mindset. If that had been 20 or 30 years earlier with a Harley Race, for example, and the guy goes into business for himself on live TV, tries to bury the guy, Harley Race on a promo, then Harley Race may have walked back and asked Tony Khan, said, well, who am I wrestling in the main event on your $1 million house now? Just like Steve Austin called Vince McMahon up that time about Mark Merrow after he got powerbombed by Sable. That's what he's talking about, Jeff, because if the guy double crosses Punk on a promo on live TV, who's to say he's not going to double cross him when he's fucking laying there and the jack-off's going to come off the top rope?
Yeah, really. I like Cabana enough to sabotage this on live TV, but I don't like him enough to punch you in the mouth when you're not ready for it.
Yeah. So, and then what's Punk going to have to do? He's going to have to fucking defend himself, which probably, and again with Page, yes, he's a fine-looking young athlete. But I'm just, since he's a goddamn, obviously a mealy-mouthed little fucking butt muncher,
empty
that
head.
has to, empty head that has to, do shit like that instead of coming up and getting a guy's face. So I think I still bet on Punk against Page, but that would mean that Punk would have had to fucking taken him down and applied some of that UFC training in the middle of a live pay-per-view. And who wants that? So I'm surprised.
I do.
Well, you know what I'm saying.
I know what you're saying. Well, let's get a little more audio. Nick finally gets, and we always compliment Nick Hausman. He always asks good questions. It just so happens that he's from Chicago, so Punk knew who he knew.
And he picked the wrong week to quit sniffing glue.
But Nick Hausman goes to the next question about MJF, but it comes back to this because Punk has never talked about this. I mean, there have been so many things that people have thought about the falling out of him and Colt Cabana because publicly they were so close for so many years, but we've never heard anything from CM Punk about it. So now that those floodgates have opened, he has more to say. You'll hear it here.
First of all, you're always very nice to me, and thank you. I wanted to ask about MJF. Obviously, he played a voicemail from you before he came out. Obviously confronted you, Punk. Why now? Why is MJF back in the fold now? How do you both feel about him being around? How do you feel about the time he spent away? All of that.
Well, if I may, I am the one who asked him to come back because MJF's a big star in this company, and this is one of the biggest events. A year ago, CM Punk debuted here, and I thought it was right for the fans. And like I said, for the fans, I thought the best thing that we could do as a company was bring MJF back.
He wants me to work with pricks constantly. That's what it is.
Nevertheless, two of the top wrestlers in the world, MJF and CM Punk, could be a big match down the line.
Sorry to keep bringing this fucking up, but I've never spoken his word, and I don't know how long, so I'm a little fucking pissed off about it.
That's fine.
When it came down that he was going to sue me, I asked to talk to him. He refused. I asked for mediation. It was denied. I offered him money. He said it was not enough. He went ahead with the lawsuit and sued. It's his fucking funeral. I don't care. He shares a bank account with his mother. It tells you all you need to know about what kind of character that is.
You were always very nice to me. Thank you.
I appreciate it, Nick. I'm sorry if I'm a little fucking snippy.
That's fine. That's
I'm
fine.
hurt and I'm old and I'm fucking tired. And I work with fucking children.
I respect the situation.
I regret not answering your question the
And
first
I
time.
only asked it because I have some familiarity and just wanted some clarification on the story.
I should have just taken a head on like I did with Blake and Forbes recently.
We're all learning here, Tony. It's okay.
Thanks.
Thank you, guys.
This is from Mindy's Bakery, by the way. It's a great place in Chicago. If you like pastries and baked goods, I suggest you go there. They're closed on Mondays and Tuesdays, though.
All right, well, there's the plug for Mindy's Bakery.
I'm tired, I'm old, I'm hurt, and I'm cranky, and I work with children. That's fucking hilarious. Oh, my God. Where is Punk from? He's 40. I guess he would. No, it would have been a little too early. I did spend some time in the Chicago area, but it would have been a little too late for him. But he sounds like we're some kind of blood relation.
All right, I'm just trying to find the next audio snippet here that we're going to play, and I'm trying to do that live on the air here, but this next one, I'm not sure who asked this question, but it, I guess, gets Punk going again. The question is about if Punk MJF will headline Arthur Ashe, and Tony says no comment, and here's what Punk says.
I'm not going to comment on it.
You go down.
Oh, thank you.
I'll tell you why I'm upset about it. Is because if you're an EVP, you don't try to middle your top babyface. Try to get your niche audience that's on the internet to hate him for some made-up bullshit rumor. Really pisses me off. Stepping on your own dick. Trying to fucking, make money, sell tickets, fill arenas. And these stupid guys think they're in Reseda.
Wow.
Living in Reseda. That's where they still are in their minds. They're in their little self-started promotion where for 400 people, they could do anything they wanted to do and live out their fantasies of being worldwide wrestling stars. But now that they've got the opportunity to actually be worldwide wrestling stars, we find out that they were the understudies. And
remember though, we used to hear from wrestlers in California who were not part of their clique and not part of the pro wrestling guerrilla clique with Excalibur and Joey Ryan. I mean, let's talk about this whole group that if you didn't play the way they wanted to, you couldn't play at all. There were guys that at the time felt they had to do the Joey Ryan stuff because they wouldn't get booked by Joey's friends if he didn't do it. It was an entire little clique, and they took the majority of that clique and brought it to AEW, and now that things aren't going the way they want, and let's not even forget about the fact that 2 weeks in a row, I think they lost 200,000 viewers for the 6-man main event with Kenny.
Well, yes, and that's another point that Punk is making, without saying those exact words, but when he talks about this little fucking pretend wannabe cowboy that bows up to him on television, again, Punk is the draw for the ratings and the pay-per-views and the Zabada, and that's been proven the last couple of weeks when Punk's activities, whatever they may have been, have drawn over 1 million viewers, and then they saved the main event spot for Harpo and the kids, and they come out and immediately 200,000 people say, fuck this, because it's exactly what he termed it, a niche audience. And Punk's just the vocal one there now, but it's not like that, other people haven't said this. I'm not even going to go into what we say. The people who are serious about wrestling as a business and a big business and a real business do not identify with or want to mollycoddle or placate or put up with or go along with the fucking trampoline cowboy crowd, except they're afraid they might lose their fucking job because they're EVPs. Because Tony was crazy. Instead of giving the illusion of having wrestlers having a say in his company, he actually gave it to them. And the wrong ones.
And again, CM Punk saying this stuff publicly. Lots of other people have said it privately. We never got to hear what Cody Rhodes had to say because there are NDAs in place And Cody, quite frankly, is more of a political kind of guy, so he's not going to say what he really thinks. But this is not new stuff.
He just left.
Yeah, this is not new stuff with the behind-the-scenes stuff in AEW with these people. But let's go back to CM Punk, because, again, he still has some stuff to say. Let's go to this.
Last time we were here last year, I asked you about like Terry Funk and his influence, like the legacy going on. Kind of, and this is for you too, Tony. I kind of like you've done a great job with incorporating the legends throughout, the course of AEW and as it goes on. I kind of want to see what you feel about how a lot of the modern talent today can kind of utilize some of the advice and take advice from like guys like William Regal and even like Jim Ross, Tony Schiavone. I know I'm missing Jake Roberts, plenty I'm missing, I'm sure. But I just kind of want to get both your perspectives on that and how that can kind of go a little bit more to help you guys out grow as a company.
We have a locker room full of pretty brilliant minds. Jerry Lynn, Dean Malenko, Mark Henry. When I came back and I cut my promo my second week here, I thought it was pretty decent. You know what I mean? Kind of blur the lines a little bit. What's he doing? Oh, crazy Phil. He's going into business for himself. And really, I was just defending myself. But, you mix that in with attacking Moxley and mention, Kingston being the second best Kingston, which is a pretty great line. But our locker room, for all the wisdom and brilliance it has, isn't worth shit when you have an empty-headed idiot who's never done anything in the business do public interviews and say, "No, I don't really take advice." Who the fuck do you think you are? That's stupid. I'm on a team with Barry Bonds, Mark McGuire, Sammy Sosa, and I don't need to work on my swing. I'm not going to listen to these guys. They're going to tell me how to swing a baseball. Fucking go fuck yourself. That's how I feel about it. I dare you to fucking say that to Terry Funk's face. I don't need to listen to you, Mr. Funk. I know what I'm doing. Fucking grow up.
Well, there's another one from CM Punk.
The facial expressions were great. And of course, he's referencing what we talked about a couple weeks ago, that Hangnail Page did an interview saying, well, I guess some people try to give me advice. I don't really think I really need to take advice because, we've started this revolution and we've done pretty good. So I don't really need to take advice. Oh, God, no, yes. No, Mr. Funk, I don't need to listen to you. Oh, my God.
Can you imagine the frustrations, though? I mean,
here's this is the kind of media scrum you would have got from everybody in Crockett Promotions in 1986 if you'd have kept the guys after a long show till 2 o'clock in the morning to talk to a room full of 6 reporters. This is probably what you would have got.
Well, let's get a little bit more audio. I think the only other thing of note, I'm trying to scan through our notes here. Again, the wrestling news at thewrestlingnews.com, or wherever you find your favorite podcast. We have a great news team. Jason Nacarado and everyone else helping out. But let's go to this. This is towards the end of the scrum. CM Punk getting ready to leave, and he has a few more things to say.
Thank you.
Alvarez, you saw that video, man, and you were so incredulous that I went into business for myself, and I was just like,
No, I made sure to say that some people were upset that you had done that, and other people said that you were defending yourself, which is what you said, that you were defending yourself.
And the reason I've never defended myself is because when you do, it just sounds like you're being defensive. But I've eaten shit on this subject for a very, very long time. I'm very sad today that I had to get up here and say his name. He doesn't fucking deserve it, and talk about it. But facts are facts, Name 2 people that have made the most money off the name CM Punk. I don't think you're there yet. The first one's Vince McMahon. The second one's Scott Colton. I hope you all have a good night. Please be more responsible with the news you get from certain people. And just remember, we're human beings. Thank you.
Wait a minute. He was getting standing ovations in the front and in the back last night. Again, fuck around with a guy that doesn't give a shit about hurting your feelings or not, and knows that he has the whether it's the pull or the gravitas or whatever, to be able to tell the truth and speak out about something without having to worry about getting fired and find out what happens. They're used to playing with children because they are children themselves mentally and in some cases physically. And some people in the wrestling business don't want to play like children.
And not too many people have been able to speak out. Because again, not everyone is in a position where they can feel comfortable that they could do something like this. They can't fuck with CM Punk. He's kind of invincible. But they can fuck with everyone else.
And that was part of the problem with that the WWE couldn't fuck with him either, because he had the power, the privilege, the inclination to just say, fuck you, I'll go home until I want to do something else that I want to do, which he did. And you can't fuck with that.
You know, we've been saying it for a while, and we'll say it again so people aren't completely shocked. There are going to be more and more stories coming out of AEW. Coming out of AEW.
A&W? Yeah, wait till you find out how they make their root beer. Chimpanzee piss is a fucking secret ingredient.
And that's actually going to be the name of this episode, but there's going to be stories coming out of there in the years ahead about the behavior of the executive vice presidents, about the behavior of Kenny. And don't be surprised. The guys that went out of their way to try to present their version of things to a lot of people, that they were the good guys and everyone else is wrong, that these are the bad guys. The guys who are full of shit, and the guys who try to fuck over anyone who's not in their clique. Don't be surprised when you hear more about this. We've been telling you about it for a while, sometimes with laughter, but we've been telling you about it for a long time, and now it's out in the open. Now no one can deny it or ignore it anymore, but we've been talking about this, Jim, for a couple of years now, at least.
That's true, and also I thought the title of this episode was going to be Melees, Tramps, and Thieves.
You know, we usually don't have titles for the drive-thru, but we'll see what happens, but
it's up for grabs. Melees, Tramps, and Thieves, or Chimpanzee Piss.
You know, that press scrum, and we'll have more audio from the remainder of the scrum later in the show, was really something. I mean, if you really want to do a media scrum with a wrestling media, that's how you do it. You get headlines, you get someone talking real.
Yeah, all
that's
kinds
incredible.
Of buzz. It wasn't a crummy scrum.
No, but it was, some may say, a work of art. And how's that for a transition?
You know, I have seen people refer to it as a complete work of art of verbal evisceration, the art of verbally engulfing someone in flames. But, you know, here's the thing, folks. Whether it's artwork or whether it's a work of art or whether it's a masterwork or whatever it is that Brian's trying to transition to, I'll save it somehow. Because, you know, we have talked about here in the past my amazing collections of memorabilia, comic books and wrestling and old pop culture stuff, all kinds of things. And, you know, we've made money off of that. I turned my Amazing Fantasy 15 into the beautiful front fence across my property. And just last year, I worked with the folks over at Heritage Auctions on some of the wrestling collectibles. Well, folks, it's art and collectibles. And don't forget the Midnight Express book that is now going for hundreds of dollars if you can find one on eBay. And, of course, these amazingly collectible action figures that I have been issuing for the past few years. Well, it's all part of investments, a way to make money when the whole rest of the world crashes into flames and no country's money is worth 2 flying flitters anymore. You're still going to have stuff like the Mona Lisa. You're still going to have stuff like a Fabergé egg. You're still going to have stuff painted by Van Gogh, who I just saw lately. He's looking pretty good. He's been undercover. He's off the radar now, but he's taking better care of himself.
You've seen his work. You haven't seen the actual Van Gogh, obviously.
I've seen his work, and as a matter of fact, it's lovely, and you should buy 3 or 4 next time you get a chance. But all this whether it's classic art, contemporary art, you can make money by collecting and investing in art. I'm not the only one that does this. You're not the only one that does it, Brian. Billionaires have been doing it for generations with the high-value art. As a financial asset, contemporary art has outpaced the S&P 500 by more than double for the last 25 years. Inflation has gone through the roof. The last time inflation was this high, contemporary art appreciated an average of 33% annually. That means 3 years at 99%. And you know what that means? That's more than real estate. That's even more than gold. That's more than plutonium, Brian. And you know how inflation has hit plutonium lately. So
I don't. And why are we talking about plutonium?
Well, because it's gone up.
But it's not art. We should be talking about fine art and things that can be classified
as prices of things that you can invest in. You know, there was a good, steady market in plutonium for some time, but it's just gotten out of the reach of most normal consumers. But right now, there's a platform called Masterworks that lets people like you and me and other members of the cult of Cornette invest in famous works of art at a fraction of the actual price. That's because you only get a little piece of the painting. They cut the corner off and send it to you in the mail. But when they sell a painting that you've invested in, you could see a pretty nice potential return, especially if you keep your mouth shut and let them do the work. And so far, the average net return on Masterworks from the paintings they've sold is 29%. You would have thought they'd have got at least 100%, but it's 29%. I don't know really. I guess that's over and above. Their entire collection has appreciated by 15.3%, according to internal valuations that they have done. They got to keep an eye on these things. So, folks, right now, we've actually talked to the folks at Masterworks. So many of you signed up. They want to offer all of my listeners priority access to skip their wait list. Because, you know, sometimes you got to stand in line for important shit like this. Go to masterworks.art/Jim, masterworks.art/Jim, and you can skip the wait list and give them some of your money even quicker so they can turn around and make you a fortune out of that. And you can see important Regulation A disclosures at masterworks.com/CD. I don't know what those disclosures are, but I've heard that they're important and they're regulated. Masterworks.art/Jim. Skip that wait list. Do not wait in line. Go directly to the head of the whole joint here, and they'll tell you what to do from there.
That's right. No more waiting.
No more wait. You're not going to wait. You will not wait 1 second. You will sign up for this thing at that list, and you'll skip the wait list, and you'll go right there, and you'll be able to do all the things that you would have been able to do if you had waited, but you'll save time.
With Masterworks.
With Masterworks.
.art.
Save time and make money.
No wait.
Time is money.
There'll be no wait.
No waiting.
After CM Punk left, as we mentioned, during Swerve Strickland and Keith Lee. I hate the name. What is it? Swerve to Our Glory? Swerve in Our Glory?
Swerve in Our Glory, which actually makes no sense whatsoever.
It's so stupid.
You can't really swerve in glory.
Well, they swerved into the press conference.
You can't really even tread water in it.
They swerved right into the press conference. They sat there with Tony Khan in the middle of them. Again, during this is when the melee happened in the back. But here's where things got a little awkward. And actually, I don't know who asked this question. I don't have it here. But again, Tony Khan, the booker, with the tag team champions on either side of him. Let's go to this.
Hey, next. Question for Tony. Given how crazy it was for the Acclaim in the building, how much they were over tonight, in a way that I think probably surprised most of us in this room, the level of it. When you were sitting back there, did you give any consideration to calling an audible?
Well, I think look, it's up to these guys who are great wrestlers. Why don't I address the match? And everybody's got questions for Keith and Swerve. I think it's great to talk to the champions, and then I'll talk about the match last. Thank you.
Okay. Last question here for the champs, Nick.
Well, I'll do a follow-up on it, and I'll address it to Keith and Swerve then. You know, my timeline was filled with people saying if there was a time to call an audible, this was the time. Well,
okay, forget about that. I think in the context of the wrestling match, Nick, forget about audible. I mean, in the flow of that was a classic wrestling match, and if I may, what's your question?
My question was how do you two feel about seeing people say that they thought that you guys should have maybe
you put the wrong team over.
Well, I'll stop this for a second before you hear the answer.
They're trying to say you put the wrong team over. The people wanted to see the Acclaimed win. It was obvious. It was there. It was right in front of you. Get on the goddamn, you're at the go position. Get on the IFB. Tell the referee, hey, tell them sunset flip, drop the fucking belts, get the fuck out of there. That's all you got to do. That's what they're trying to ask you.
Well, we're going to go to this answer in a second, but it's awkward watching it. You feel bad for them. You're looking at Keith Lee.
Right in front of the flunkies that are standing there, supposedly the champions. Yeah, why didn't the other team win? Because they were good and the people wanted that.
I like, too, the way it happened. Tony, did you think about an audible? I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah, he was shutting that down real quick, and they wouldn't stop.
Can I ask a follow-up? How did you guys feel about the idea that people thought there should be an audible?
How did you guys feel that the building couldn't give a shit whether y'all won or dropped dead or turned blue, and they wanted to see the other guys win? How did you feel about that?
Well, let's hear a little bit from them, and tell me what you think of their answer.
Get it from us. First of all, let me be honest with you. Social media is very much beneath me. It is very rare that I read it, okay?
I gotta tell him about the bullshit.
He really does. He literally reports to me and sends me links because I don't give a damn. Everything that I've done in this business, in this industry, just because we're in the ring and we make someone look incredible, and we're good at it.
Oh, God.
We're very good at it. Stories are told, things happen, we pull something different out of everyone that we've ever fought. Now, I challenge you.
I challenge you.
I love
if this happens again with someone else, to have a better match than what we just put on out there. Accept the challenge and then show me.
I need receipts. I'm just going to start asking for receipts from a lot of that.
Until then, it sounds arrogant, but I'm being very honest. Mount Everest. Someone should climb it.
Let me stop it. I know you're not watching
this. Did he
this.
get Everest and Rushmore mixed up there?
I love this version of Keith Lee talking like this, in a setting like this, as opposed to just standing there by yourself with a microphone. They should be heels. This is good for a heel tag team.
And I think, I don't know whether he's smart enough to know. If he's smart enough to know that, yes, that's what he's doing, that was great. But if he actually thinks that match was due to anything that he and Swerve had to do with it, I think he's nuts. So with that voice, and remember, he even was quoted in an interview, Keith Lee was, shortly after he left the WWF, saying, well, and they didn't like my voice. No wonder, if that's the way you really sound. But as a heel, as a condescending heel, looking down your nose at everybody, that might work. But I don't think a lot of these guys, they have some kind of talent or some special attribute, something to hang their hat on that they could get over, but they don't know what it is, and nobody is trying to, well, I won't say nobody's trying to bring him. Maybe they were in NXT and he wouldn't listen because they said, they didn't like my voice. Then you should have fucking changed it because nobody else does either. So I guess that's the thing. Some of these guys, they have attributes that they could use to their advantage, but I don't think they know what they are or how to bring them out or how to avoid the other shit that ain't going to do them any good.
Well, before I play you any more audio, let me just promise you, before we get to this next section, there's going to be some good stuff at the end that you're going to like, with Tony getting fired up, talking about Jim Crockett promotions, etc. But we got to get through some of this Chris Jericho stuff because you have to hear it. You really need to see it because it's so pompous. It's amazing. It's like go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, like inside the actor's studio kind of shit.
Really, like imagine if they had the most smug version of Jerry Lewis on there. And he's just blowing himself all over the place and talking about all the people he's done great things for with all his brilliant ideas that he concocted in his brilliant mind.
And how popular he is in France.
And imagine if he was sitting next to his biggest fan. And that's what you got here with Chris Jericho and Tony Khan. Let me play you some audio, Jim. Here is Chris Jericho talking about the advice he gave to the roster during the meeting.
Well, thank you. Nick Hausman, Wrestling Inc. I asked Tony about this earlier this week, but there was the mandatory backstage talent meeting that Tony confirmed happened. Reportedly, you spoke at that meeting, Chris. I was just wondering if you could tell us what you said to the roster and, what kind of advice you're giving to talent and management right now at this period in AEW.
The specifics don't need to be discussed, even though you can read them online, and that was one of the things that was discussed. Don't leak shit that's supposed to be private amongst us. But I think that my message always is to remind people how special AEW is. And don't take that for granted, like swearing and that sort of thing. Like, all it takes is the wrong guy to see somebody say pussy or whatever the hell it is, and they're going to go, done. It happens. We know this. So I always want to remind guys that please don't...
How many times has he said dipshit on TV?
I was about to say, wasn't he the shit king of television?
For a while there. He was trying to go with GFY until Moxley said, go fuck yourself on live TV.
Yes. So this is the guy, watch your language, kids.
Ruin, or potentially ruin, this amazing world that we've created.
We don't want guys going into business for themselves.
We don't, and we can't.
Girls.
And where I came from, working for Vince for 20 years, that was unacceptable. It would never happen. And I'm just trying to let people know that we're getting to the point now where these types of things are unacceptable as well. And we will start, doing things that Tony would do if in the NFL or with Fulham. And we are a pro sports, multi-million-dollar company with a huge television contract, with another huge television contract coming up soon. So a lot of guys don't have that experience and don't realize just how special this is. So that's what I try and do whenever we have these types of meetings. And I have them, and Tony has them. We used to have them a lot more, but now it's a little more frequent. Just to remind guys, stay on course.
The benevolent Chris Jericho.
Yeah, there's part of the problem. That's who they're getting advice from, these young wrestlers. Chris Jericho.
Oh, my God. Stay away from the Capitol, kids. Don't listen to him.
All right, let's go to this. Hold on. Jim, here is Chris Jericho, or on this night, Lionheart.
Dave.
Hey, Chris, how are you?
Good to see you guys, man.
Good to see you too. So, when it comes to the mentality of you're reinventing yourself all the time, because you have to do. You've been in the business for a long time, and you have to keep things fresh. How did the Lionheart idea come in? I mean, in the sense of, you did it before, but to go back to something that it's almost like you're going back 25 years in your career.
Yeah.
I mean, did it just pop into your head one day, or was it something?
So it's an interesting story. So we built up a match with Jericho and Mox at Quake by the Lake for the title. And prior to that, I was just finishing up with Eddie Kingston. And also Moxley was involved as well. But we did Anarchy in the Arena, and we did Blood and Guts, and then we did Barbed Wire Everywhere. And I remember Mox at one point going, well, we need some kind of a game. Like, we've done too many gimmicks. Like, why don't we just have a fucking wrestling match? And he was, yeah, like that. And then he texted me during the week. And Mox is a man of few words, unless he's excited, in which case he'll talk your ear off. And he said, I got this idea. What do you think? I remember I was in London for my spoken word show. And he said, I got this idea. Why don't I say, like, leave all the bullshit behind, leave the JS behind. I want the guy that I used to tape trade to see, that I watched in ECW in Japan, the Super J-Cup, Lionheart, Chris Jericho. And at first I was like, well, that's interesting, because I'm not a guy who likes nostalgia. But I was like, that's really cool. It's almost like I'd just done the Painmaker with Barbed Wire Everywhere. Why can't we do Lionheart? That's actually really, really cool. And Tony loved it as well. So then I had the vest. And then I have a storage unit where I looked through boxes of stuff, and I found the kick pads, his original kick pads. I could not find.
I got to stop for a second. This is unbearable. He's so pleased with himself. It's almost like he knew this question was coming. He's so pleased with himself and the brilliant behind-the-scenes story of how Lionheart returned.
How he went through his storage unit. And at least we know now the confirmation it was Moxley's idea, because we mentioned how stupid that was and how markish that was and how narrowcasting that was, that here's a guy who beat The Rock and Steve Austin at one point the same night, was the undisputed WWF champion, back when that actually meant something. But we want to remember when he worked outlaw shows in Japan. So, yeah, that's Moxley, all right.
Jim, let's get this last bit of audio from Jericho. Here's Jericho's comments on MJF's return.
Chris and Denise Salcedo from Instinct Culture. So I wanted to ask you, given your history with MJF, what did you think of his return tonight?
I loved it. I was not expecting, like I knew he was here, but I was not expecting what I saw, and I thought that's really, really cool. Now the thing is, I worked with MJF for a year, and I know how creative he is and how good he is, so it doesn't surprise me. What surprised me the most is that we got Sympathy for the Devil by the Rolling Stones, and I'm like, okay, that's some money for sure. White Zombie, Electric Head, that's a certain level.
You'd be surprised.
I would be surprised. I know that we asked for Van Halen at one point, and they wanted like $1 million or some ridiculous thing, and AC/DC wouldn't even call us back. So the Stones are much cooler and cheaper, apparently, or maybe not that cheap, but either way, I just
they played our stadium, former TIA.
That's right, that's right. So I thought it doesn't surprise me at all, even though I was pleasantly surprised at how he did it. Yeah. I'm a big fan of MJF, I really am. And I said to him, when you come back, you're going to be a baby face. And he's like, I don't want to be a baby face, I want to be a face. I said, it's going to happen. He's like, I don't know what to do. I said, I'm sure The Rock said the same thing, or Steve Austin said the same thing.
Thank you, Chris.
Come back. I'll teach you. It's easy. It's easier to make people hate you than it is to make them like you. But once they start hating you, that's when they really start liking you. And he's almost at that point. That's my prediction. I think he'll be one of our top baby faces, whether he wants to be or not, very, very soon.
Thank you, Chris, for trying to make somebody else in the company with talent look phony and fake and fucking kill their gimmick. Thank you very much for that.
Really, what the fuck is that? MJF, for everything we know about the guy, does everything he can to protect his gimmick. And there's Jericho like, oh, he came to me, he was so concerned. How can I be a heel?
Yeah.
How can I do it? And he talked just like this. He talked just like, seriously.
Because he was so excited to be in my presence because I was Lionheart.
It's like a late era Liberace interview. This is so ridiculous. And you look at him and his forehead is all pulled back. I don't know what that is on top of his fucking head. And then he sits there and in the most pretentious way tries to talk like the master thespian speaking to Cannes. I mean, I really don't know. The Cannes Film Festival. That's where he is. It's so ridiculous and it's so preposterous. And the only thing that makes this concerning is the fact that Tony Khan's next to him and he's clearly the biggest fan Chris Jericho has in the entire world.
He's nodding and he's smiling and it's like he's mooning. He's mooning. Because it's his living action figures, his whole collection there. He gets to show them off.
Well, Jim, let's go to Tony Khan audio, and we'll wrap things up with some audio from Tony here. Nick Hausman asked him about the recent stories of AEW's legal team warning WWE about contract tampering. Let's go to this.
Here you go, Nick.
Thank you. I wanted to ask about kind of a follow-up about your comments about alluding to contract tampering. You were also asked about a potential WWE AEW Super Show, and you said not after the way they treated me. What happened when you say something like that? How were you treated? What was the exchange there with WWE?
I've had a number of interactions with them, and I don't know. I'm not. I was super. I've said a lot of nice stuff, and I don't regret saying nice stuff because I'm super honest about pro wrestling, and when I saw good stuff happening there, I'll be the first to say it. But yeah, I just am not feeling the same love.
Is there a reason for that?
I don't want to get into it, but I just haven't felt the same reciprocation that I have for them.
Well, let's stop there, Tony. Talking about. Yeah, I mean, again, he's put out the idea in the past that he would not be against the idea of a super show. It's one of those fan ideas that you always hear about. And that's kind of what was addressed here.
If he has ever, at any point in his life, from yesterday through his birth, ever, for 1 second, seriously thought that the WWE would have any kind of joint event with him, he's out of his mind. And it shows that these people don't understand the business that they've gotten themselves into. That was never a thing that was going to happen under Vince. That's never a thing that's going to happen under Triple H. It's not going to take place. And the idea that he thinks because he called them up and complimented them or said nice things in some forum that they were going to do the same thing to him is ridiculous. This is business, and the WWE has spent the past 40 years putting all their competitors out of business. And they are going to do nothing on purpose to help him. They did let quite a few pieces of talent go that would have helped him when he picked him up if he had used them properly. But they're not going to do anything on purpose to help him or in any way make anything any easier for him. They're going to do the exact opposite. They're going to counter-program him. They're going to book against him. They're going to go back channel to get talent. They're going to do the same thing they've been doing for the past 40 fucking years. And if this is a surprise to him and he thought in some fashion because they said nice things about each other that the door was open to work together now or in the future, that's insane. The WWE's like every other big business in America or in the world. They will stab you in the back and then call the cops and have you arrested for carrying a concealed weapon.
Let's get another question for Tony. This next question was asked.
My big question is, does my fart that I accidentally let earlier, did that stay in the show, or is that being cut out?
It's up to you.
I'd like to leave it.
Well, I did not expect that, but all right, we'll leave it since it didn't smell too bad. But Jim, this next question, I don't know why you went back to that now. This next question here to Tony Khan was from someone named Izzy from Hot Tag with Izzy. She asked about, with everything going on in AEW, the overall success of All Out as a business venture, the actual money it generated, will that help everything happening in the back? Let's go to Tony's answer.
Well, I think there's still like a lot of wrestlers in professional wrestling who don't get along, and now it's more apparent than ever that there are those things. But I also think that the industry has thrived on creative tension for a long time, and then you might say, well, what if it doesn't manifest itself in a match right away? And I also think that, as I mentioned other times this weekend, when in the 90s, which is arguably the all-time business peak and interest peak, and really I think just the general peak of pro wrestling in many ways, the late 90s and early 2000s, there was certainly a big group of pro wrestlers who did not like each other. There were a lot of people who didn't get along, and a lot of times they weren't even in the same companies, and they would rip each other. And it was certainly not going to produce a match. But that is what we produce, is wrestling matches, and there are a lot of matches between people who probably don't get along and don't like each other, and it's not always an easy road to get people in the ring. But when you can get people in the ring to settle their differences in the ring, it can be really exciting. There's a lot of conversation about people not getting along, not liking each other. I definitely think that it's probably more apparent than ever that there's a lot of that. I don't like everything either. I don't like everything people say, and there's people that have said things pretty blatantly, even people that work here that have just gone out and slammed me blatantly in public, and there's only so much of it I'll take. I'm a pretty nice guy and I'm very flexible. It's nice being home. As a segue, being here, seeing a lot of my friends, I have a pretty calm demeanor generally with people, and I'm willing to put up with a lot of abuse. Something that came up while I was doing an interview this week was one of the guys that interviewed me while I was in town. He went to the University of Illinois, and we kind of put together that I had bartended for him many, many times and served him many drinks over the years when I was a bartender in college. I have a demeanor of service. I try to service people, and that includes the wrestling fans. I will go around and ask if I can help somebody.
There's a number of people being serviced right
offer
now.
Somebody a hand or pour somebody a drink or whatever I need to do to make somebody feel better. But there's only so much slamming me and knocking me I can put up with. But on the other hand, I will do what's right for business when I have to. And so I think, to be honest, when people don't get along, people don't like each other, I think I've been probably had people saying about as much stuff about me over the last few months as anybody. And sometimes you just have to take it and move on with business, and that's a part of it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, there's a lot there. What did you think of Tony's comments?
Tony's an odd fellow, isn't he? Tony, I don't think, gets a good grasp on what's going on around him. He thinks because he's nice to everybody that everybody's just going to be nice and trustworthy to him. Has he not figured out yet? Is it because he's in the billionaire's bubble that most people will fuck you around in a heartbeat if they can get what they want, and will turn on you and fucking slander you. And that's why that if he's going to run a business, it needs to be business, or if he's going to hang out with friends, they need to be friends, but you can't have both. Does that make any sense?
It does make sense. You know, it's probably, not probably, it is hard when you've established yourself in one way or another as a friend, and now you have to put your foot down finally, because you didn't at the beginning. But there's a lot of things going on there. And, you know, again, Tony's busy also with a football team and everything else. And whatever happened with Thunder Rosa, whatever happened with Eddie Kingston and Sammy Guevara, everything now with the AEW civil war between factions, this is all happening under these conditions. But Jim, let's go to this next question. Speaking of these conditions, here's a question from Brandon Thurston about how the business of this pay-per-view is doing. And this is going to go into that quote I mentioned earlier.
Oh, the Crockett quote.
Yeah, so let's listen to this. We'll get your thoughts. If there's any point you want me to stop because you have something to say, just stop me.
Hey, man. Yes, I'm well aware, sir. I'm sorry for the, yes, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to step on you. It's good to see you.
Good to see you. Can you tell us how this pay-per-view is selling? Usually you get digital right away.
Yeah, digital. So I am going to say I don't have an exact number for you. I think it's probably, there's a chance it's going to be the second highest all-out ever. It may not be the highest all-out. It might be the first time we haven't hit that high. I knew last year the all-time high would be challenging. There's a big difference between this year and last year. We were the first professional wrestling show and the only professional wrestling show on Labor Day weekend last year, and we were the third professional wrestling show of the weekend this year. I don't think that's a coincidence. And when I talk about things I wasn't thrilled about, I was a little surprised we were the third professional wrestling show this weekend, and it's probably a little bit more challenging in the marketplace when it becomes a little more crowded. So our performance, given the prior years, we never had this kind of competition, and it's kind of a first for us in AEW to see this kind of crowded marketplace. I'm not sure if this is what we'll see from now on. If it is, when the fight is brought, I will continue bringing fights of my own, and I have unique ways to do that and a lot of money to fight with. And this is not a game to me. This is my life, and I don't think it's a joke, and I take it really seriously. And yeah, so I am very happy with the numbers we did. Given the competition we had, I was hoping that it would be the all-time high for All Out, but I'm not sure it's going to quite hit that. So it's the first time an AEW pay-per-view in history did not top the number before, probably. But that being said, it's still going to be, again, the second highest number we've ever done for All Out, and this year will end up being the biggest year on pay-per-view in AEW's history by far for pay-per-view revenue. It won't even be close. So even with full gear to come, I'm quite confident this will be our all-time high for pay-per-view revenue.
Put it in a rank with other pay-per-views this year?
It's pretty similar to the other pay-per-views this year. I think it would be, Forbidden Door was an unprecedented success and the biggest debut in AEW pay-per-view history. A lot of the buys were international, and the price point is obviously a little bit lower in international. I think this would be more total buys and
I'm going to sleep. When does he say the stupid thing?
I believe it's coming up in a few seconds.
Okay, the stupid thing then. Stay tuned, folks, for the stupid thing.
Yeah, stay awake. Come on, we don't have a sleep sponsor this week.
It would be significantly higher than Forbidden Door. I'd expect it to be similar to Double or Nothing. But All Out last year was higher than Double or Nothing was last year.
He does go on.
It was a high all-time for Double or Nothing, obviously. I don't know if we'll quite hit that, but I do think it's going to be in that range. So very good, given the competition that we've never faced before. This is kind of an unprecedented marker, in my opinion. But it's still, the number is the number, and I have to face the competition out there. But when I compare myself to Jim Crockett Promotions this weekend, I think I got a taste of the same medicine Jim Crockett Promotions took. But I have a lot more fucking money than Jim Crockett did. And I'm serious, I'm not going to sit back and take this fucking shit.
Ooh.
And if you see him visually, it's the angriest we've ever seen Tony Khan, I believe, on camera here. Not that you immediately dismiss what he said, but I mean, what he's saying, you understand why he feels the way he does.
Well, yes, but also I'm very scared that that's the angriest we've ever seen him. Of course, he's got more money than Jim Crockett Promotions had, because Jim Crockett Promotions had been in the wrestling business for 40 years, not in the rich father business for 40 years. But at some point, number one, why is he surprised? They counter-programmed the Bunkhouse Stampede with the Royal Rumble. And then Crockett counter-programmed WrestleMania with the Clash of Champions. And blah, blah, blah. It's been going on. That's what you do in a wrestling war. You run the other guy's towns, try to get in the other guy's buildings, try to steal the other guy's talent, try to take the other guy's television. Whatever the case, it shouldn't be a surprise, but what he's doing now is telling them, well, I got a bunch more money than Jimmy Crockett. So the first thing that they're going to do, if they're smart in Stamford, is say, well, let's see if we can make him spend as much of it as possible. And then, because they know that he's willing to throw money after the situation to not be one-upped or to not be punked out or put upon or whatever, so they're going to say, let's see how much money we can make him spend. And then they're going to start booking shit that they don't even intend to do, maybe. They're just going to see if he'll respond by spending some money to fucking counter-program him or counter-book him or whatever. Then they pull out, he's committed. He don't even know what they're doing to him until they've done it. Because he's saying, I'm willing to spend all the money in the world. At some point, nobody is willing to spend all the money in the world, even if they have it. And we saw that with Dixie Carter when Bob and Mama Carter had to get involved because she'd overstepped her allowance. I'm not saying it's going to be the same thing here because these people got a lot more money than the Carters. But at some point, you don't tell the opposition, I got 1,000,000 bullets here in this fort, and if you come up the hill, I'll fire every single one of them at you. Because then there's going to be people coming up the hill every day until you don't have any more bullets left.
Well, again, to be fair, he's going through a lot right now.
I wonder if the football players are this cantankerous with each other as the wrestlers are. They all know how to play football, and they're probably all kind of in the same mindset of maybe we ought not have flaming tables on the sidelines and put barbed wire around the fucking goalposts.
And again, with everything happening behind the scenes, things out of his control at the moment, everything happening with the business of AEW, the concerns going on, and now Triple H is there. There's buzz with WWE, whether it's warranted or not. You can understand why, for the first time, he really let off steam like this about the issue. Whether it's wise or not, you can understand why.
No, I see what he's doing. He's cracking. Because that being in that position, you will crack eventually and want to choke somebody or say fuck it or throw something off a bridge or whatever the case. Everybody handles it differently, but he's starting to crack because his boys are starting to crack. Because there's no cohesive teamwork nor leadership.
You said what WWE would do more than likely is try to drain him of some of that money. If you were Tony Khan, what would you do? If you're saying, hey, I don't like the way you guys are trying to fuck around with my business, I'm going to fuck around with you right back. What could you do?
Well, in this case, he could have had the more attractive show to a larger number of people. But that's not possible because he doesn't have the largest number of people watching his television to draw from. So, again, don't rely on just the fans that you have already because they came with you at the start. They're just blind to the drawbacks of Twinkle Toes and etc. But they're not going to forsake you if you get some other talent on the show that regular folks might like. They're not going to go away because they're there. They're invested. They love the company more than anything. There just ain't enough of them. There's 750,000 or whatever of them. The 200 and something thousand people that turn the TV off when they see Harpo is maybe who you need to appeal to a little more, and some more of them that you might be able to get afterwards if you keep getting stars of the name recognition value of CM Punk or young talent like MJF or Hobbs or FTR that the real wrestling fans want to see, not the goddamn gymnastics exhibitions. He's always talking about having a bunch of a buffet of every wrestling style. No, you don't. You've got constant over and over self-gratifying indie outlaw style bullshit, and you have only a segment or two on each television show that is devoted to the experienced veterans that know how to do this shit right. So put on a better show that's not going to cost you any more money. You're already promoting it. You're already airing it. You're already paying the crew to shoot it. Whatever, just make it better. and get your employees in control and start making them do what you tell them to do because you are the boss and you are paying them. And if they don't like it, then be the first one to offer to help them carry their bags to the fucking car. I mean, you don't need to spend a lot of money to do that. And I don't see how he's going to be. How can he spend money and fight that anyway? The WWE can book any shows they want, anywhere they want, anytime they want. They can run them all day long. He can spend money. He's not going to be able to stop that. What's he going to do? Hire a goddamn crew of fucking, the circus rowdies to go and tear the fucking tent down? Can't do that in this day and age. So he's just expressing that he's willing to spend a lot of money in some unknown way to stop the WWE from doing what they're going to be doing to him more often in the future, which is running opposition, trying to get some of the talent, trying to prevent more talent from going there, trying to prevent Tony from getting any foothold he can in any new project, in any means that they can figure out how to do it. That's just what's going to happen.
Well, we shall see. But Jim, let me ask you a question. Have you ever stopped to wonder why internet access is so much cheaper these days? Like $30 to $40 a month? It's because internet service providers aren't just making money off subscription fees. They're also making money from spying on your internet activity and selling your history and data and the data to big tech companies. So, what's the best way to make sure that 100% of your data is encrypted and that your ISP can't get a hold of it? I'm asking you.
Well, I'm going to tell you. And I've never wondered why internet access was cheaper these days, because these Spectrum assholes are charging me double for half the internet that I'm supposed to get. But I have heard and do indeed concur and agree with that these internet service providers, the ISPs for short, are making more money off of you than they're entitled to. They're spying on your internet activity. As you mentioned, they're selling your data and your history. And, there's a lot of people, apparently we come to find out, there's a lot of people doing things on their internet connection that they don't want people to know about. Now, that's where the fine folks at ExpressVPN come in. Now, we've been talking about ExpressVPN, Brian, and you've straightened me out. You've clarified a few things. I want to make mention of some things that ExpressVPN will not do. I'm now told that they do not provide you with a fake identity and documentation and paperwork to support same. That's not one of the services that they provide. They will not give you driver's licenses, birth certificates, passports, or other things in fictitious people's names. Am I correct in this?
Yes, you are actually correct. That is completely ridiculous. So, of course,
they will not do this.
ExpressVPN does not do those things. No,
of course they wouldn't. And they do not provide. I'm told this under very certain circumstances that they do not provide a cleaning crew to come to your home to clean up any incidents, to remove any evidence of wrongdoing, such as, I don't know, files, documents, top secret classified dossiers, human corpses, things that are buried in your crawl space. They do not send a cleaning crew out to take care of that. You got to do all that stuff on your own. ExpressVPN will not get involved in that. Is that what I'm told?
Once again, of course they would not do that. You'd have to be a complete moron to believe something like that, because ExpressVPN does wonderful things for you that don't include any of these silly, funny things that have come from the mind of Mr. Jim Cornette, the star.
Well, no, they didn't come from my mind. I was told these things, and now I'm trying to separate the wheat from the chaff. I'm trying to get to the truth from the fiction.
Who told you these things?
Well, I'll be unreliable people that were wandering down the street when I happened to be sitting there under the tree saying, wow, I wonder what this ExpressVPN is all about. Here's something else I hear they do not do. They, under no circumstances, will provide you with the name and location of a plastic surgeon that will change your appearance in any way, shape, or form. They will not have anyone that can perform surgery on you at a undisclosed location, possibly with or without the benefit of anesthesia, to change your appearance in case your picture is, well, spread all over the place. They won't do that.
No, of course not. I don't know why we're still going over this. Of course they won't do that. ExpressVPN will create a secure tunnel between all your devices.
Now, there's a secure tunnel between your devices. How secure is it? Could somebody break into that tunnel and go from one device to the other? It's a secure tunnel. They can't.
It's a secure.
They can't break into it. They create a secure tunnel between your devices and the internet, so everything you do online is encrypted. I understand. Also, they do reroute your connection through a secure server, which blocks your ISP from seeing the ISP. From seeing everything that you do online. And some people are doing some things online that, frankly, if your parents only knew.
Stop. That's not in the copy. Let's try to.
All that they can see, all these people out there trying to spy on you folks, they're looking in your windows, they're in your walls, they're everywhere, and they're looking at everything that you see and do. They're listening to what you say.
Come on.
But if you're connected to ExpressVPN, then all they can see is you're connected to an ExpressVPN server. Nothing beyond that. They can't read your documents. They can't listen to your communications. They cannot peek in the window at you and look at you in your underwear. And that's all things that these crooked ISPs have been noted for doing. I saw that article about the peeping on the underwear in the newspaper last week. Folks, it's not just for a phone or a computer. ExpressVPN works on all your devices, on your tablets, on your smart TVs, your router. Your entire family will stay protected. I mean, this thing, it'll work on your toasters, your microwaves, and they won't be able to tell what kind of food that you're microwaving or eating. I can't stress this enough that ExpressVPN is so simple to use. You just open up the app, whatever that is, wherever it may be. You tap one button, and once you've tapped, you're connected. Protect your data. It's your business and your business only. And nobody else is going to tell you what to do with your business or your data. Or elsewise, you can tell them to go take a flying leap at a rolling donut. Right now, go to expressvpn.com/JCE, and you're going to get 3 extra months of rolling donuts for free, along with 3 extra months of ExpressVPN protection for free. That's expressvpn.com/JCE. Go there, learn more, get 3 months of protection for free. Once they get finished with the ExpressVPN, nobody on the planet is going to know where you are, what your name is, or what you look like. You'll never be able to find your way back where they're going to put you.
Stop. You make it worse at the very end. You will know where you are and how to find your way back. And of course, everyone who you want to find you will be able to find you. And ExpressVPN will be right there with you along the way. Your safe journey to and from wherever it is that you are going here with expressvpn.com/JCE.
Sometimes you don't want to come back.